Deja, you're next to me. You know, you've been there before.
Yeah, before.
The water has to be before, I'm sure.
All right, first up today are the North Carolina Tar Heels. They are.
I said boom. That's good.
Good. All right. They're the 8th seed in the Albany 1 Regional. They were 19-12 overall, 11-7 in the ACC. Joined today by head coach Courtney Banghart and student athletes Deja Kelly and Alyssa Usby. Coach, if you would, please make an opening statement, and we'll open up for questions.
You bet. Well, we're glad to be here. March is kind of what this is all about. Our guys have been through a challenging non-conference schedule. They were obviously a very challenging conference schedule, and this is kind of that third chapter of the season. Super proud to be sitting alongside two of just really great representatives of our program and of our institution and of our team. So, all that they've done is being recognized in this type of environment, which is really awesome. So we know we got a great opponent. Michigan State is well coached. They're cohesive. They've got dangerous threats all over the floor. They've also come from a tough conference, so a really good first-round matchup that should be fun for both sides.
Open up for questions just for the student athletes at this time. If you would, you raise your hand, and we'll get a microphone to you right behind you there, and go ahead and here in the front.
Deja, Mitch Northam, WUNC. How long did y'all let yourself sit with the loss to Miami over these past 2 weeks?
Oh, gosh. It was a few days. I think we all kind of just needed a few days, literally away from each other. I think it stuck with us for a little minute. I think especially as older ones, as vets. That one stings, but we knew that we had to put one foot forward, and we had to worry about someone else next, and then kind of put that behind us and just focus on getting better within that kind of last week and a half-ish.
Front middle.
Caroline from the DTH. This is for Alyssa and Deja. Can you talk about specifically what lessons you learned from that really tough Miami loss?
Deja, would you go first, please?
I think just knowing that our core four, we have to play well for us to be successful. So I think that took a lot of individual accountability on our end, but just knowing that we have to be able to lead our team through tough games like that. Even if we're not playing well, we still have to find ways to win, and I think that that's where we had a drop off throughout the game. Even though shots weren't falling, things like that, there's opportunities for us to find a way to win, and we didn't do so. So just knowing going forward into Friday and this weekend, I think just knowing that we have that responsibility we have to play well, and if we're not shot, that doesn't just mean shots falling and things like that. That means in a variety of ways how we can impact the game to make sure we come out with a win.
Alyssa?
I would say a couple things that we took away are we have to be intentional on offense, so that's getting into the actions that we want and getting the shots that we want for the right people, and then also being urgent on the defensive end. And then I think those two things would be really helpful for us to pull out some of these closer games, and understanding that these games come down to those little details, especially when you're in March. The little details are big moments and big things that matter.
Let's go over here to the front. Pete.
Pete Iacobelli, Associated Press, for Deja and Alyssa. You've probably gotten a crash course at Michigan State these last few days. What do you see from them on tape? What kind of a challenge is it going to be tomorrow?
Alyssa, why don't you take that first?
Yeah, Michigan State, like Coach said, is a well-coached team, and they have a lot of threats all on the floor. So our little crash course is mainly just understanding how this team plays and who they are. That's one thing that's there's pros and cons of playing somebody that you've never played before. We're kind of adjusting to their style, trying to see what their style of play is like, and then forming our game plan that way. But we're really excited to play a new opponent.
Deja?
Yeah, we know that they can score it at a high clip. So I think our biggest focus going into this game is the defensive end. We have to be kind of what Liz said, urgent on that end, and knowing that ignites our offense, our transition attack, and us being able to get some quick scoring out of our defense. So we know that they're a good team. They look connected on offense. Defensively, they're tough. They're just a tough team, but so are we. So we just know we have to match that intensity and match that energy.
Let's go here in the front.
Yeah, so Coach mentioned, this is kind of your third season, right? Non-conference, ACC, NCAA tournament. This is a team that's had a lot of ups and downs this season. How do you kind of see it as a fresh start and sort of, hey, this is something new, sort of 0-0. How do you sort of get that mentality, I guess, going into this?
Alyssa?
Yeah, I mean, I think a fresh start is a good way to describe it. We don't need to necessarily reinvent ourselves, but we need to redefine ourselves. And so understanding what that means for us is, again, urgent on the defensive end, intentional on offense, making sure that we rebound, getting out in transition, kind of getting back to those things that we would consider our bread and butter, and really focusing on those, and again, just defining ourselves of who the team we want to be in March is.
Let's go to the middle there.
Matt Kraus, Tar Heel Sports Network from Learfield. Deja or Alyssa, Michigan State's got players that can shoot the 3 spots 1 through 5. What are the challenges there defensively?
Alyssa, why don't you take that first, and we'll go to Deja.
Yeah, I think when you have a team that has a lot of shooters, it forces your defense to play a little more spread out. So I think containing our 1v1 matchup will be important, and making sure that we don't fly out at shooters, because then if they're going to drive by us, that could lead to more problems down the line as well. So kind of just locking into personnel and containing our matchup.
Deja?
Yeah, they have shooters, but they're good basketball players, so they can put the ball on the floor as well. So I think just playing straight up will be to our advantage. We're a pretty connected defensive team, so if we just do that and play and be in the gaps and be in help side, help the helper, I think that'll be really important for us to be successful on that end.
Let's go to the middle here.
Hi, I'm Emma Moon with the Daily Tar Heel. For Alyssa and Deja, just what specific ACC matches this season do you think compare to the pace and scoring ability that Michigan State has?
Deja, why don't you take that first?
Well, as we all know, the ACC is it's pretty good, I guess you can say. Let's see. I would compare them to probably I think I know, I'm trying to think now. I think a team that, help me out here. A little bit of Florida State, even though 3-point shooting wasn't really what they did, except against us. I would say probably right. I would say almost like an NC State. They play fast in a way. They have bigs that can shoot it, in like a Mimi Collins and like a Madison Hayes, and their guards, obviously. Yeah, they play fast, and then they can get to the rim really, really well. So I think I would compare them kind of to them. But I don't think Michigan State is as big as them. They were pretty big. Yeah. So.
Alyssa, you have a thought?
I would kind of compare them to Virginia. I think that, similar to Virginia, they have post players that are 3-point threats, and they also have a really strong presence down low in the post, and posts that like to put the ball on the floor before they make a move. And then they have a dynamic point guard that can distribute the ball, can attack downhill, can probe, and help make her teammates better.
That's a good one too, Liz.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Let's go back here in the front.
Deja, you mentioned that the team kind of had to take some time away from each other following the Miami loss. How did you kind of personally take that time? What did you do, and what were you thinking in that moment?
I watched a crap load of film. I did. In my house, I watched a lot of film. And just saw, different. I look at a lot of different things when I watch film, but I think those days were for me to individually get better, mentally, physically, see how I can be better in different areas. So I think that's what I did with my time, because I knew that, I know I have to play well for us to help us be successful, and I know I have to help my other teammates play well for us to be successful as well. So knowing that I can impact the game in different ways, I think really seeing where I didn't, where I did, just specifically in that game, and trying to carry that over into our practice the past week and a half. I think trying to lead with my voice, but also just trying to be intentional with the different areas where I know I needed to see some growth there.
Other questions for student athletes? None? All right, y'all can go back.
Thank you.
The locker room is open at this time.
All right.
And we'll open up for questions for Coach. Pete?
Courtney, what have the same question as
Yeah.
your players? What have you seen out of Michigan State? You probably didn't spend a lot of time before the tournament brackets came out, even knowing their style. What have you seen out of them?
Well, actually, ironically, Robin's one of my good friends. So I've been rooting for her. We were talking on the phone last night when I was on the bus, and it was like, gosh, it's like the team you root for, now you're playing in the first round, right? So I fortunately had seen a few, not full games, but I had, you peek in when you're traveling or when you have the 6 o'clock game and she's got the 8 o'clock game. You're just kind of, you're waiting for your media to finish up or whatnot. So I had seen bits and pieces of them. Obviously, now I've watched them a lot closer. But, knowing her success at Bowling Green, her success at Ashland, I mean, this is a team that plays to her personality. They've got, they're competitive, they're joyful in how they compete. They can really spread the floor. She's got really good pieces. Like, they connect well. Like, I'm not sure that all of them would be as great on other teams, but together they play really well. So, it's a team that can put up a lot of points. They use pressure to try to get some also in transition. So they try to disrupt you. It's not just, I think their offense is so good, you give a lot of credit to their offense, right? It's a two-way team. It's just, we were laughing on the bus. I said, does this make you the worst 9 seed if you're playing South Carolina second? I mean, I guess they took a lot into that NCAA tournament. I mean, what tournament? Big Ten tournament. They're a whole lot better team than a 9 seed. And she knows that, and we know that, and obviously that makes for a good matchup. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure.
Let's go right there in the middle.
Yeah, Coach. Just wondering, when you, after the Miami loss, but you get back to practice, but before you know who your opponent is, what is sort of the emphasis and the focus, practicing without knowing who you're playing next?
It's one of the best weeks that coaches have because it's the only time, and basically once the season, we already know, I don't, but someone on my staff knows who we play to open the season next year. So it's the only week of the whole entire year where you can work on yourself in true earnest, right? You don't know anything of who you're playing and what their strengths and weaknesses are. So we spend a lot of time on us. And I know that's cliche coach talk, but it's real talk, right? Like you when you build out your non-conference schedule, you're still in this off season or in the spring, in the fall, you're building to the various kind of ways that you'll need to play over the first month of the season. Last week, we focused on us and where do we need to sharpen, where do our reads need to be better, and you can use analytics to see where are you making mistakes and where are you most effective. And so we've been able to tweak some things to try to put them in situations to be more successful, given what their strengths and weaknesses are. And then also you get a chance, we gave them a few days off. We haven't had consecutive days off since April. I mean, since last April, right? So that was nice too. So it was a good week. For a coach, it's a chance to just focus on your team. It's a nice thing.
Let's go to the middle.
So kind of going off of that, what did the conversation look with the team as a whole, with individuals, in order to get back to playing kind of as you guys, as you're saying?
I think the conversations between coach and player are really sacred. I'm not one of those coaches that shares those on blast, and I know there are those that do, right? But for me, the conversations I've had with Deja and Alyssa and their teammates, that's made for them and I, right? And same thing with when we're all behind one closed door and we're sharing kind of what we do well and what we don't do well and what we need. So those conversations, I guess I'm in a position of I love the sacredness of those. But whenever you're progressing, I always say you have to be both self-aware and self-accountable. And so in any way that our conversations are pretty much centered on those things. Let me help you with self-awareness and let me help you with self-accountability. Right, and that happens in small group. It happens individually, and it's ever going. It'll happen today at 1:45. They start again. Right, these conversations. So, I would say self-awareness, self-accountability, and then the nuance of that is sacred.
Stay in the middle.
Similar question to you, Coach, is what the players got. Who does Michigan State remind you of that you've played already?
Gosh, I see opponents as so unique. I think they probably answered it well. There's a variety of different, I think the up-tempo defensive play of the NC State and Florida State and the Florida State's dangerous without really a dominant kind of big. And then Virginia has more kind of ruggedness to them. So it's why you schedule. If you look at our non-conference schedule, you're better at math than me, but it's up there as one of the best in the country. And then, of course, you have the ACC, and arguably in its long tradition, it's just one of the best stretches of ACC basketball, right? So we've really been battle-tested. And as much as these guys are saying you have to kind of redefine, I think you have to also lean on your experiences, right? That's what life's about, right? Your experiences are meant to be lived in the moment, and then they connect and collect to become who you are, right? And so I will continue to connect for them the ACC and the non-conference and the similarities of certain teams throughout, and how we need to continue to focus going into this game.
Pete?
Courtney, you've kind of touched on this in bits and pieces in some of your answers. But do you like the fact that your conference tournament may end on a Thursday or Friday, and then it's going to be another 2 weeks before you get back to action? Would you like the schedule to be more like the men do it, where they finish, the major conferences finish up this past weekend, and then a week later go right into the tournament?
There's lots of sides to that. I think as long as the committee is not apathetic, right? Because as you get closer, you have to start just slotting people into. And so I don't know how that affects the accuracy of it and how hard these people work. And I'm talking these people, I'm talking the courageous student athletes. Coaches were expected to, right? We're paid to, right? These guys are doing it out of the passion only. And the seating is important, and it has to get right, right? And so anything that will eliminate that opportunity, I don't like, because it's not fair to have the wrong seed. And then when I was in the Ivy League, we played the last weekend, and I wasn't happy then. So I guess I'm just a not happy. That's just kind of how that works. But I think the biggest thing is the seeding has to get right. So whatever the committee needs, if they need a full 6 months, then we'll do it 6 months before. That's how important I think the seeding is.
All right, Pete.
Yeah, I wanted to ask too. Obviously, when the season begins, you get to this point, you're happy.
Oh, yeah.
But the challenges that coaches face now these days with the new realities of the portal and NIL, does it make the job a little less satisfying, or is there, some bumps that probably weren't there before? How do you handle that?
You just can't be change resistant. Yeah, the job I signed on for 20 years ago when I became a head coach is not the job now, right? The job I signed on for when I got the Carolina job 5 years ago, it's not the job now, right? And so you either evolve or you get out. And there's been coaches who've determined that option B was their preferred path. For me, I've just adjusted, right, and recognized and adapt that it's so easy to look at the things that make it really challenging and our jobs hard, and maybe less satisfying, or you lean into what the newness of this is, right? And how I can help our student athletes lean into, for example, the NIL, how I can help them learn to lean into that women now have a seat at the table. And the table is corporate, the table is brands, the table is equity, right? I'm stretched, but I'm leaning in to that opportunity that they have and trying to help them find their voice and find their presence there. And then in the portal, that's a real challenge, right? Because the exit culture is happening at all institutions, not just in athletics. It's happening everywhere, right? And so we can say, gosh, good old days is when you really like leaned into what's hard. Well, then I wouldn't have Lexi, India, and Maria either, right? So I guess the uncomplicated answer is that it's a very different job than we signed on for. And the really simple answer is the day I don't feel fulfilled by it, I'll leave. We are not held hostage by our professions, right? And so the coaches that are so negative about it, it's bringing everybody down. Just get out, then do something else. We are highly marketable human beings, right? So it is it is a new business now, and lean in and see what it is. We're being paid, by the way, too, better than we were 10 years ago, right? Or get out. And so for now, I've really enjoyed leaning into being stretched to the max.
How would you kind of describe the team's mentality going into this week, and who have you really seen step up in practice lately?
It's a good question. We're a team that has 4 four-year seniors. It's pretty remarkable. I don't know what that looks like for other rosters, but and so there's an enormous sense of buy-in for the Carolina across their chest that, especially as what we just alluded to, that's just so incredibly rare. And that's not because Deja, Alyssa, Anya, and Z haven't had other options or other people calling to try to steal them, right? It's because they have really believed in the Carolina across their chest. So there's an element of pride and shared kind of ownership for this journey that I really respect. And then you've got the younger guys, the newer guys to the roster. This is Maria's first NCAA tournament. Like how, right? And so, you get a chance to bring people along with their first as well. This team's problem has never been mentality, right? They've been incredibly resilient, given we started 4 different point guards. It's the one position you want to have one, and then just play them all the time, right? And so we've had to really shift and match, and what you guys see month to month is different than we've had to really evolve. I've grown a lot, so it's never been a mentality. I think sometimes we play fatigued mentally and physically. We come at that pretty honestly with 3 guys having to play 40 minutes a game, and so I've really tried to help them not only rest mentally and physically, but own that. That's the self-accountability piece that it makes sense that you would be mentally fatigued, and you might say you're not. I have the self-accountability and awareness that that's how it's playing out, right? And so I think how it's been this week is they're owning that, and they feel a little bit more refreshed in that, and hoping that the version that they show is not that, and knowing that this is an opportunity of a lifetime. There are people who've coached for as long as I have who've never coached in the NCAA tournament or played for 4, 3, 2 years and never been to the NCAA tournament. This is an honor, and our effort needs to match that.
Let's go over to the right.
You mentioned, you gave the players a couple of days off right after the ACC tournament. What did you as coaches do? How did you spend that time?
I'm guessing you all can guess what we did. We do 2 things. We either recruit or we get fired. There's no other option in this business. So I was on planes and on rides, and I would love to say I was watching my son play basketball or my daughter play lacrosse or sitting at the lake, but those would be inaccurate answers. So I was recruiting, and that's another thing, to answer your question, if you don't like recruiting, this isn't a business for you. But you have to be okay with getting your heart broken, right? The only way you can get your heart broken is to really lean into it, right? And so whenever we're not practicing or we're off, coaches use that time to recruit, or at least my staff does.
Any other questions for Coach? All right, we'll let her go.
But I did see Robin and I shared a cocktail in the Turks and Caicos last May. So that's where I wasn't. I don't think she was there either, but that would have been great. Thanks, guys.
North Carolina locker room is